Failure doesn't just take the thing, it takes the story you told yourself about who you were based on the thing. When the businesses went wrong, it wasn't just the money, the effort, the time. It was the version of yourself that was going to exist on the other side of the business succeeding. When the relationship ended,
just say it.
I can't.
it wasn't just the person. It was the future you'd be building in your mind, the version of your life that included them. When the channel stayed at zero,
what is happening? I won't let this define me.
it wasn't just the numbers. It was the question underneath the numbers. Maybe I'm not the person I thought I was. Failure has a secondary wound, and the secondary wound is almost every time worse than failure itself. I want to tell you about a specific moment. I've been building something for a long time.
I see it now. The path is clear. No longer a mystery, just execution.
Putting real effort, real belief, real identity into it. And it failed, not dramatically, not in a single moment. The way most failure actually happened, gradually, then obviously, then finally accepted. And what I felt wasn't what I expected. I expected sadness, I expected frustration, I expected the practical weight of what to do next. What I actually felt, I can't explain for a long time. It was shame. Not about the failure, about myself, as if the failure was the evidence, as the outcome was proof of something I'd been afraid was true all along, that I wasn't actually capable, wasn't actually qualified, wasn't actually the person I'd pretending to be. That's the secondary wound, and I felt it across multiple domains. The addiction, which felt like fundamental proof of brokenness. The channel in its early days, which felt like the proof of irrelevance. The relationship that ended, which for a moment felt like proof that I was someone who couldn't sustain that matter. These are different failures, but the secondary wound felt the same. Here's what's actually happening psychologically. Most people, without consciously choosing it, build their self-worth on a conditional foundation. I'm worthy because I'm successful. I'm worthy because I'm loved. I'm worthy because my work is recognized. This feels like natural observation. They aren't. They are contingencies. And contingent self-worth means that any failure in the area the worth is contingent on doesn't just the outcome. It takes worth. Psychology calls this contingent self-esteem.
Hi, what's up?
Haha.
And the research consistently shows that people with highly contingent self-esteem experience failure more deeply, not because they are weaker, but because they've attached more of their identity to the outcome. The failure doesn't just say, oh, this didn't work. It says you are not what you think. And that, the identity attack, is what makes certain failures unsurvivable. Carl Rogers talked about unconditional positive regard, the experience of being valued regardless of performance. Most of us didn't get enough of this, so we learned to manufacture it ourselves by performing, by achieving, by becoming the person whose results justified their experience. And then failure arrives and the results are gone and the worth goes with them because it was never separate from them. The secondary wound of failure is an identity crisis, not in the dramatic sense, not the I don't know who I am, of complete disorientation. The specific, the quiet, corrosive one, where you keep functioning, keep showing up, but the inner narrator has shifted. Before the failure, I'm someone who can do this. After, I'm someone who thought they could. That shift from confidence to conditional belief is what failure actually installs, and left unexamined, it stays. It shows up as a hesitation before the next attempt, as a need to over-prepare, because you no longer trust your own judgment, as the way you tell the stories of the failure to yourself and others, not as something that happened, but as evidence of who you are. The failure becomes the part of your identity, and identity starts to organize behavior around not failing again, which often means not trying again. So how do you actually rebuild? Not quickly, not through affirmations, not through immediate succeeding. It's something else to replace the loss of evidence of worth. Here's what actually works. First, separate the failure from the verdict. What failed was a specific moment, specific attempt in a specific time. What did not fail? Your fundamental capacity, your worth as a person, your right to try again. This feels like the same thing when you're inside the wound. They are not the same thing. The practical work, write the failure down. What specifically failed, what specifically didn't. What you actually learned, what would you do differently now. The act of writing it down externalizes it. It moves the failure from inside of your identity to outside it, where it can be examined rather than inhabited. Second, rebuild worth on a different foundation. If your worth was contingent on the outcome and the outcome failed, the answer is not to find another outcome to be contingent on. The answer is to find a foundation that the outcome cannot touch. Your values, your honesty, the quality of your attention to what you care about, the consistency of who you are regardless of what you are currently producing.
Yeah.
These don't fluctuate with your result, and worth built here is a failure proof, not because the failure stops hurting, but because it stops touching the core. Third, tell the story different, not to others, to yourself. The story you tell yourself about failures determines whether they become part of your identity or part of your education. I failed at this identity. This attempt tell me that specific thing that I needed to know. Education. Both are true. One is more usable. Choose deliberately which story you rehearse. I still feel the secondary wound sometimes. When a video doesn't land, when something I built doesn't work, when I compare where I am to where I thought I'd be. The old voice arrives at schedule.
It is a lie. They know.
See, this is who you actually are. But I recognize it faster. I know the difference between the failure and the verdict the failure trying to deliver. The failure happened. That's true. The verdict is optional. That's also true. Your self-worth was never supposed to be a result of your results. It was an argument you made. Probably early, probably without full choice, because you need to find a way to justify your own existence in the environment that made you early. You don't need to keep that arrangement. The thing that failed was real, but it was not the measure of you. It never was. Tell me in comments which failure has changed how you see yourselves. Press like and subscribe. It will help to reach more people who need this. Let's rise together. Have a good fight, fam.